Dr. Janelle Billingslea joining the call here. So
Yeah, I'm totally not camera ready. Clearly, I did not get the memo.
she did. So yeah. So let me tell you guys something here. So one of the greatest things about how we met. So literally, this was 5 years ago, shortly right before the pandemic, and we were working downtown, literally probably a block and a half away from the White House. And when I went up, it was my first day at this opportunity that we were working at. So I won't share the name or anything like that, but we were doing some government contracting work for the Department of Veteran Affairs. And so our boss and we're setting, like she was sitting next to our boss. And literally the first day, I don't even think she even recognized me at all. And I'm a 280-pound man. It's not like I'm like very, I'm very hard to beat. Our boss, Mario, was like 6'7", 6'8". He's even taller than
He
me.
was. He so was. Yeah.
So for him to literally be like, I guess he may have been blocking the view. I will just say that. Okay, because I don't understand how she was able to miss me. But you know what? Lo and behold, that's just what it was. But yeah, so we've been knowing each other for a very long time. She is an author as well, and she has wrote a book called The Federal Contracting Playbook. It's a really great book. If you really want to get into the government space, I highly recommend that you guys go and definitely pick her brain. Literally, she is definitely a wealth of knowledge in that regard. But yes, Dr. Billingsley, I will turn it over to you to have you tell the audience a little bit about you.
Wow. Well, thank you for having me. Uh, I think you did a really good job of sort of articulating how we first met. It was
Right.
very interesting. We were doing consulting work for the federal government, specifically Veterans Affairs. We were working for a consulting firm, which was awesome. Yeah, so I don't know. I would just say that I am extremely passionate about people who have great ideas, life-changing ideas that will help shape society for the better. And for that reason, I wrote a book to help innovators, people with great ideas on how they can solve some of society's biggest challenges, to help innovators get that seed funding that they need to start creating and actually building solutions to help our society as a whole. That's really what the book is about. That's really what I'm passionate about. I advise the government on how to develop their technical solutions and to build what is known as acquisition strategies. They're writing their contracts for innovative solutions and just to bring it into the ecosystem. That's really like my bread and butter. I'm not sure what else you want me to say, but I wrote a book just for people like that, for people who are interested in bringing ideas to the government.
Love it. And literally, I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, like she's amazing to work with. So I highly recommend if you are interested in definitely wanting to learn the government contracting space and really want to expand your business, I highly recommend, she is a connect with. But yes, also a phenomenal friend of mine, and literally she was a huge support system. We worked for each other during the pandemic lockdown. That was a lot going on during that lockdown. I do not like to not be able to go out to the gym. For me, not to be able to travel. I'm a huge world traveler, and knowing you
Mhm.
down, that was definitely a lot. I will say. I don't even know how literally, and I take my hat off to a lot of people who are going through it. And the Zoom calls were quite hilarious back then. I will say that was very literally how some of these parents were about to lose their ever living mind with their kids in the background. So very, very interesting times. So, but anyway, so how are you doing, man? How's the weekend treating you?
Well, I don't know. This is a new platform. I've never seen this before. Here, I feel like I'm like walked into the interview room. Yeah, the weekend is. I mean, right now, I would just say, we're going through some very interesting times, and
Interesting times indeed.
yeah, very interesting times. I would say that, like, in many ways, with some of the changes that we're seeing, there's elements, that feels similar to the pandemic, and just this idea that there's just so much uncertainty and unknown. And I feel like that's how I was feeling during the pandemic, just not knowing what's coming next or how to cope. That is what I'm feeling right now. So I feel like every week is, ever since January 1st, has been a little bit emotionally and spiritually exhausting. And I've had to really take my Saturdays, I guess, if you will, to really rest and reset and pour into myself. Like, that's my self-care day so that I can, cope with all of the uncertainty, if you will. So, yeah, so that's how the weekend's treating me. This is my self-care day.
Can totally understand that. Everybody definitely needs it. And just for a side note here, our thoughts and prayers and everything for everyone who is impacted from the layoffs and everything. I know this is a very hard and difficult time for a lot of people. And you know what? So we're definitely praying for you and hoping everything pans out for the better. I've learned that in life that sometimes my family's always said this is, when a door closes, a bigger one opens. So always take it as, take this opportunity, and maybe, reinvent yourself. Figure out, what, maybe there's a new path for you that you could take, but I understand right now that so it's not as easy to, go through that process, especially when you're in the crux of dealing with all the stress. I totally understand. But back to Washington, D.C., her and I've lived in Washington, D.C. total, because I've been in and out as I moved out and came back. So for a total of time, I've been in D.C., I think it was like 12 years of total living time. So what we are seeing in Washington, D.C. right now is absolutely unprecedented. And I would say just not trying to get into all the politics and everything of it, but I will say this Washington, D.C. has been the number one city with the best economy because it was one of the cities you could easily move to and get a job very quickly. Even if you wanted to a career transition, it was very easy because the federal government really empowering the entire community from, what we call the DMV. So
Agreed.
so living there now, and now that we're seeing a complete seismic shift of how the current culture that was normally something that's been baked in the Washington D.C. for decades, is
Yeah.
shifting. You know,
And I would I would add, I think one of the interesting things about Washington, D.C. is obviously one of the biggest, the thing that makes the market is the federal space. But that's what makes it so unique, right? Because you have so many professionals of different flavors because there's an agency or there is a mission to do things along finances. There's a mission to do, to provide foreign aid. There's a mission for education. There's a mission for just all of these, what you kind of see in other cities were very disparate. If you want to be in tech, so there's a space for everybody, like for your passion to do mission oriented work, no matter what industry you're in. And so it just brings together a lot of different professionals from all different walks of life. And I feel like that's what makes DC unique compared to like some of the other cities in the United States that are very specific to one industry. We're heavy on the federal, but the federal spans like everything. If you're into like renewable power and energy, there's the Department of Energy, and then there's like the consulting that goes along with it. So, yeah, so sort of rocking the bedrock of what makes this area unique and what makes it, what brings so many people together is just really disrupting, the area as a whole.
I would agree. I definitely agree. And I think people do not, and one of the things about this podcast is I do want to educate people on certain things that people don't really understand. As Washington, D.C. and the federal government, a lot of businesses do business with the federal government. One of the things is one of the biggest contractors in the space is Booz Allen. 98% of their revenue comes from the federal government and contracting. So I will tell you right now, if knowing that you can rely 98% of your business model on federal government contract, that lets you know that literally this is a safe space. It's always been a safe space for business. I know several small businesses that I've worked with over the years that have started just getting a contract. I'm talking about service disabled, service veteran owned businesses that have started with the government.
Mhm.
And whether they were under a mentor protege program like with a Booz Allen or a Deloitte or something like that, but it has been a bedrock for helping a lot of businesses grow. And the
Yeah.
most important thing is in business, small business is the most important part of the American economy. So interrupting that train off the track in any capacity will have some devastating effects to our economy.
Yeah. So true. I think, yeah, just to add to what you just said, I mean, the federal government has been an engine behind full-blown industries across the United States. Even when we think about, things like the semiconductor industry and, what became Silicon Valley, all things that started because of the federal government, because of military programs. We think of some of our biggest corporations, like Google, that started with the National Science Foundation. When you think about why is it escaping me right now? When you think about, I don't know, Boeing, right? Yeah, they had started, but they really, really took off because of the U.S. mail contracts. So there are a lot of innovators and businesses that are now industry leaders or major employers of Americans and also foreigners across the globe that really got their start or were really able to accelerate their operation or what they were doing because of the federal government. So the federal government and federal dollars really has tentacles like all across the country and really shaping employment and opportunities and just a whole host of things.
Absolutely. And I'm going to take it a step further just to give you, and most people know this and some people don't. So I love to educate and empower here. But if it wasn't for the federal government, you know, the 2008 real estate crash, like literally what they call the Great Recession, if the federal government hadn't stepped in and
Mhm.
really saved the markets, we would be looking at a whole new world order for the American economy right now. Okay, so to
Mhm.
just let you all know, um, yeah, if you've ever seen the movie Too Big to Fail, which is one of my favorite movies to watch, but it crystallizes just how serious it really was. And if they never went, and had a meeting on the Capitol Hill about, temporary asset relief program, which
Yeah.
was the economy, and literally that $700 billion that was
Mhm.
core to save a lot of those banks because, as you
Mhm.
know, in the finance industry, I believe it's two-thirds of GDP they were holding at the time. So it was too big to fail. So what the federal government had to really be the lifeline. So, and
Mhm.
this back to our point, the federal government is truly a lifeline. You know what I'm saying? So when you hear about civil service workers out there contributing to society, like USA and all of them have a mission and a purpose. You might not see it, you might not hear about it on the news, but it is important. And one of the things I want to do with this podcast is bring a lot of these people in here and promote transparency into the process and really empower the mind because literally, if a lot of funding does get cut, and there's a lot of revamping that does happen. Now, I understand, there is truly some waste and fraud and some abuse that has happened over the years, but that's in every business. That's not only the federal government. That's just what happens.
That's what
So
happens when human beings are in the loop.
Okay, absolutely. That's just what we do. Yes. And so, with that being said, it is important, to really understand, the real true apparatus of what's going on. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, by Janelle being a federal, civil service employee, she's done work at Department of Defense, but now she's doing work at Health and Human Services. So I didn't know if you wanted to go in and just share with the audience your perspectives of how it has empowered your coworkers. I'm not empowered, but it more of affected your coworkers and yourself. Just
Yeah.
yeah.
So
So
I would say, I guess just to like comment on my background, I would say like I've spent most of my time in private industry and, as a consultant. And more recently, I've done work directly for the federal government as a civil servant. I think one of the things, because I actually met up with a colleague from private industry, and they really had sort of like disparaging comments, making comments like, why would someone think that they're supposed to have a job for an entire career? And what people I think miss is that like when you're a federal employee, it is federal service. So just like our uniformed officers have to swear in and swear to uphold the Constitution and all those other things, you are a civil servant. I would just call it's like a core. It's not like a regular private job where you go and do the job. It's sort of dictates a lot of what you can and can't do, in life. I mean, there's definitely more restrictions depending on what agency you're with, but it's not just another job. It's almost a lifestyle, and there are rules and regulations that come with you holding that job and holding that position, and that seat of, depending on what your position is, that seat of power. So, you're really acting on behalf of the United States. You're responsible for upholding the Constitution. There's a lot of different things that you have to do, you have to be aware of, and you're really enforcing the rules and compliance. And so you have to be impartial. Again, depending on what your position is, sometimes those things, it's even more critical, but you are not sworn to any particular party. You have to be impartial, and you have to enforce the rules set forth by Congress and laws and policies and all this other stuff. So it's very different. And I think there's a misconception among the public of what it means to be a civil servant. And I think that because the culture is that you're just a quiet professional, I think that there's a lot of misinformation because federal employees are not like sort of promoting themselves, because that is in direct opposition to what the civil service is. It's not self-promoting. You're working on behalf of the government. It's very different than private industry. So there's a lot of things that people are just not aware of, I think.
and I would agree. And I will take it a step further
Mm.
is how often do people really understand their government? Here's the thing is, and one of the greatest quotes that I've heard about federal government is only effective by how much it empowers people's lives, not the processes that it follows. And going back to what Janelle was saying here is about how important being a civil servant employee is because, for instance, the people that work at the Social Security Administration, right, Medicare, that is important to make sure that our seniors get all the relevant care and things that they need. And that is important. Those are very important jobs. Okay. And what she does, even at health and human services, that's very important as well because, we need to regulate what is going on at CDC, what is going on at NIH, certain things
Yeah.
about, you know, um, vaccines, certain,
Mhm.
we need to be aware, like there's another outbreak coming out from CDC. These people are so important on staying on top of those sort of things for us and in really protecting the American,
American
consumer.
people, yeah, for sure.
So I really and for me living in Washington D.C. for so long before coming to Florida, and I still have a lot of business that I do in D.C. I live here, but it's important to know how important these people are. Okay, because without our federal government, it
It's
will
the wild, wild west.
it's a while.
Literally.
It truly is. It truly is. And I'll just go back and just give some people some historical perspective on companies that have literally started simply because of the federal government. So we'll start with aerospace and defense. So we got Lockheed Martin, military contracts. We got Raytheon from government
Mhm.
defense spending on
Yeah.
guided and radar systems. SpaceX, Elon Musk from NASA contracts. You know, I mean, if we go into biotech and we got Moderna from the mRNA research.
Mm.
You know, that is from NIH funded dollars. We got also Intel from federal
Yeah.
programs and defense contracts during the Cold War. You know, these sort of companies, and a lot of these are publicly traded companies, you know,
Yeah.
and but the federal government is a huge part of their bottom line.
And I would go so far as to say, also, just to add on to what you're saying, the federal government was absolutely critical in a lot of the technical solutions that these companies eventually brought to market. A lot of these companies were not set up to do the basic and applied research that the federal government, along with academia, does. They oftentimes take that, those applied research concepts and then go and commercialize them, or the government will license it to them, or they'll sell it to them. So there's really goodness, there's wonderful goodness in that strong relationship between the federal government and our private industry. Without that initial investment that's not driven by profit, a lot of the things that we have that keep us safe, the vaccines that we have, a lot of the technical capabilities that we literally use every single day, whether it's our phone or the navigation in our car, it just wouldn't exist.
Absolutely. And I think this is a very important time, and we are at the precipice of where we're seeing such a dismantling and a disconnect between what the American people know about our
Mhm.
government
Yeah.
versus what is the transition that is happening. And I'm using this platform to really help people understand the current apparatus of how it all started and where it's going. And but yeah, so it's important for our daily. A lot of economies throughout our country and in America are going to be impacted by certain things. And I want to really prepare you all for what is happening, and
Mhm.
like the mainstream media and all of that, they don't have the space and the time to go down into the micro as far as they would want to. And as far as like, media outlets like us, who can get macro and then go very micro on on platforms like this. So this is the reason why I wanted to have this episode today here, because I know, like, with Janelle, she is a wealth of knowledge and has been in the federal space for quite some time, just like I have. And you can really get more about what is going on and how it's really going to impact us and what the future may look like. But I want to say thank you so much for your time here today.
Thank you for having me. I did not realize this is awesome. Thank you for giving me space. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. No, thank you. I am doing anything special for the rest of your weekend?
I was thinking about going to. Wait, is this being recorded? Uh, I'm just kidding. Oh my goodness. I was gonna go to a bonfire, can't get rid of the Alaskan part of me, but didn't get
Yeah.
them canceled. Yeah, I so need some nature and trees. Like I just need to be around some dirt. I don't know. And drink some like tea in a like tea kettle that's like over fire so I can feel one with nature. I don't know.
Oh my God. Okay. So, all right. I want you to tell the audience, so like, all right, tell us about your background of growing up in Alaska. Because literally, I'm from a small town. And I was telling my audience about me and where I'm from, and knowing that you're from a small town, I literally think this is a perfect time to tell it because I've never been to Alaska. I've heard a lot of great stories about it, but I think this is a great time to segue into getting to know Janelle and the Alaska Janelle.
Oh, that's so funny. Hilarious. That is hilarious. You really don't know that you've had a unique experience until you start to talk to others.
Yep.
Yeah, I grew up in a small town. Yeah, where everybody knew everybody. And over the years, I've bumped into and gone home to Alaska, and I didn't know. I think I only know of maybe two families that ever locked their doors. One was like, "Oh, my dad's a judge, so we locked our doors." I was like, "Okay, get it." Yeah, just a very different experience. I'm realizing it's not just about being from a small town. I think the geography and the fact that you can't just drive in and drive out, you made it even more remote. And there's just some other logistical things, whether it's, the barge that comes in once a week from the lower 48 to bring in supplies. It just really shapes how you look at the world and how accessible things are, how remote. It isn't like you can just hop in your car and, drive to the next closest city that's 2 hours away. No, there's no such thing. You're kind of isolated unless you take a plane ride or you get on the ferry to the next closest town, which is 18 hours away by ferry. So it's just a very different, you just have a different level of closeness with the people that you grow up with. Everybody knows everybody, and, it's just different.
It's so true because that's how my small town was as well.
Mhm.
Literally, when we honk at each other, we were saying hi. Versus
Mhm.
in the city, now you honk at somebody, yeah, you're annoying, get out of my way, you're not paying attention at the red light, whatever it is, you know how. So that's so funny. Yes. So I can literally relate because when there was an emergency growing up at my house, because at the time there was a point in time when it was me, my grandfather, my mom, my dad, my
That
aunt,
is
and my
so cute. I love
all
the
of us.
intergenerational in one log cabin.
All of us living in the house together, and we would have to take a group family trip to the grocery store because it was far. It was a little bit of a
So
drive.
cute. Okay, what is your definition of a little bit of a drive? My definition is you get on a ferry, it takes you days to get to Washington State, and then you drive.
Oh my god. Okay. So thankfully, no, we didn't have to row your boat gently down the stream to get to the grocery store. No. I will say we had to drive about, I would say 30 to 40 minutes to the nearest grocery store. Versus now, Whole Foods where I live at is literally only about 5 minute drive. So literally when I lived in Arlington, I could walk across the street to Whole Foods. It was so different,
Oh my gosh. Don't remind me. You're just making me think of how differently everyone responded to the crisis that was the pandemic.
Right, my God. Right?
I'm all stocking up weeks in advance. I'm like, order your supplies.
Right. People, not to get off subject because we'll come back here, but literally people literally were fighting over toilet paper. And
Okay.
mom was calling me on the phone when she was in the grocery store watching the toilet paper aisle, and people were fighting over toilet paper. I literally never thought a two ply was going to be in such high demand.
I know, but you just thinking about it because I just think it's funny because I just remember, talking to you during that time and being so upset. I'm like, why are you not prepared? You're like, I'll just go to the store. And I'm like, but what if because I'm from Alaska and it's like, if you don't get stuff from the barge, you have to wait another week and God forbid you know what I mean? So it's just the
Right.
way you think about things is so different. When things are easily accessible, you're like, you just go. And I remember when you called me, you're like, the store's closed. There's no more food at that store.
Literally, the shelves were barren.
Baron, I know. You were like, what are you gonna do? I was like, I have 2 months supplies worth of goods, and I was like, hey, I'll go fishing if I have to, or I'll go hunting. You're like, hunting?
Yeah, that's true. Now, me coming from a small town, that is one thing I never did was go hunting. I did fishing. But when you said hunting, I was looking at you like you were Davy Crockett. What is
You
going
did say that. You so did. You so did. And I was like, and you're like, but you don't shoot a gun. I was like, I don't shoot guns. I'm the only Alaskan that's never shot a gun. But you know what? I know how to set traps.
You setting bear traps? Like, oh,
No traps, just traps.
oh, see, my God. See, people would never understand, like, literally, like, there was a time when humans used to have to hunt on an empty stomach for food. Now,
Yeah, for days. That was back when men were men.
my God, you made it sound like men are all feminized now, like we've all changed.
Right. That's the problem. I mean, that's the one thing about Alaska, and I'm not, sorry, I'm not. I'm realizing that I'm relatively liberal, but I think I think because like it's still very, it's still very rugged.
Right.
People are forced to like you can't just sit behind a computer and survive. Like you literally have to like shovel and like cut down trees and all other stuff. So like guys know who they are, you know? It's like, because you literally need help. So it's like reinforced by the topography, if you will. It's not easy. Like I come here and I'm like, oh, it's so easy for me to get things. Then I go there, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I can't get out of my house because there's literally 6 feet of snow and I have no idea what I'm gonna do. Neighbor guy like comes and like rescues me by shoveling all that snow.
My God, jeez, Lord. Yes, I remember that is one of the things that I will say I do love about living in South Florida. That was one of the reasons why I said, you know what, I'm going to live in the tropics. I'm done with the seasons because shoveling snow, that is a whole different monster. I will.
Okay, you're like Hulk Hogan. Like you're in the gym all the time. We need to put that muscle to good use. What are you talking about? This is like functional muscle. I need you to lift some snow, okay?
That's hilarious. Oh my God. Okay, I get what you're saying, but literally, all right, all right. Yes, I've shoveled snow when I was a kid, and I remember there was a huge snowstorm that we
You've been
got.
holding out on us, pretending like you're city-fied when you know how to do things.
Okay, okay. I have a right to transition and just retire from certain types of, activities of daily life that I don't want to be exposed to anymore.
I see, I see. That blue collar work. That blue collar work. I want to see you in some Carhartts.
Yeah, okay, literally in my, faded glory and Dickies pants just outside. And that was great material, okay? All right. No, nothing against Faded Glory and Dickies because that's great material to go outside and do, yeah, the hard work. Like, yes, my granddad and my
Man, manly work.
manly work, right? Okay. Like, you come back in the house, hands all ashy with calluses because you've been
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Why are they
those kind of manly work. Like, I don't understand that now because men are,
asking?
we're going into getting our nails done now.
I
Okay,
know.
my dad and granddad were outside working all the time. Like, oh yeah, like my
Where were you in this equation? I have to know.
nosy, just trying to,
That is hilarious.
Curious George.
So I thought you were gonna say I was out there too with my shovel. I was out there too. You're like I was being nosy. He's like reporting on the progress. Oh my goodness.
my
Give a
mom and
status
grandma,
report.
literally, my mom and grandma was very protective of me, and they were like, "Hey, if he's out here with you all, y'all make sure." Okay, yeah, they had me, carry some wood in the house because my granddad had
So
old wood
cute.
furniture. Yes,
That's so
and that was back in the day when, like, literally, like, you had to, bring wood into the house and go into the furnace in the back.
cute.
Oh my gosh, jeez. See, people don't understand this here. Like, if you live this life, then you understand. Like, that was
Mhm.
like serious hard. That was like my cardio back then. Okay.
Mhm.
All right. Now, I'm all in the gym.
Now
But
he's on the treadmill.
okay. All right. Oh my God. Jeez. Okay, that's just what it was. Okay, like, but that's how I learned. Like, my mom said there's two kind of men. Okay, There's you either get you either become the man that pays to get stuff fixed, or you do all the fixing.
Oh, I like
So,
I like a refined man. But
okay.
I do love it when I can see him go down there and chop some wood. Don't have to do it every day. Just remind me that he's there.
I didn't know you were attracted to Wolverine like that, but
Oh
okay.
my gosh. Every now and again. Every now and again. It just, it just reminds me. Just reminds me, oh yeah, you are a girl.
Okay. So, if a man is out here chopping this kind of wood and being this doing this manly stuff, and so you don't mind just being in the house, cutting up vegetables, preparing dinner,
Listen, well, okay, so
you're
this should
fixing
not
dinner.
be recorded. Can we edit this out?
Gosh, you're hilarious. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm just saying. Okay,
Okay, so in reality, okay, so in all honesty, like the irony is
right.
I have the ability to do other stuff, but
Okay.
like when a guy does certain things, like does something to me that makes me want to like cook something. You know what I mean? It's not it's like if I there's two scenarios where I feel like I want to do that, right? It's when I know that someone needs it and they need pouring into. And the other scenario is like if somebody goes out and they're like hiking and hunting all day, it makes me want to like bake something nice so that it's nice and warm when they come home. Like I don't know how to explain it. It's like a deep seated like whatever. I don't know if it's because I was raised in the last. I don't know, but it just says man to me. It doesn't have to be all the time. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be all the time. I just like it every now and again. Yes, that does it for me. I like a guy who can lift some heavy objects and who can chop some wood. Yes.
Well, fellas, you've heard some notes here, so clearly, I mean, depending on which part of the world you're in, I mean, if you're in Washington D.C., like where Janelle is, I don't know, you might have to go out and chop some wood in Rock Creek Park, and
You're hilarious. No. No,
or
there's too many
down,
loafer wearing guys here. No.
chop down a mango tree and bring it over. Oh my goodness. Okay, so the old school traditional gender role
Okay,
type of
now you know me better than that. You know I don't like it like that. I'm just saying, every now and again, I like to see it. Yeah, it makes me happy.
no, good, I get it. I totally get it. To each his own here. I totally get it. So,
It's not all the time. It's like, once every so often is enough to remind me. That's good.
all right, so Janelle, if you were on a date and you said this to a guy, and a guy said to you, what, every now and then I would like for you, Janelle, just to be in the kitchen with your apron on, your kitten heels, and just whipping up a nice stew. Like, would that like how would you feel about that? Like while you out there, just cutting up some wood, working on the car, just doing that manly stuff outside, how would you feel about that scenario? Like, would that be okay with you every now and
Yeah,
then?
why not? I mean, I'm just saying, like, if somebody, I think most people, okay, so you said a date, but like most people, like, if you love somebody, you want to do something for them. You know what I mean? You want to pour into them. And so,
I
like,
agree.
I think that food or like cooking is like a great way to express that because everyone eats and it's like you doing something that's prepared by your hand and it's like an act of love. And I don't know, it makes you want to do some, certain things. And sometimes it's not always about them doing something and you want to reciprocate. Sometimes you just want to pour into them, right? Like you just want to do something for it because they need it. You can see that someone's struggling or you can see that someone's hurting and you just want to, do something so that they know that they're not alone and that you care about them in a like very fundamental way. It's not flashy. It is like very, I don't know.
I like that. No, it's a great way to show, and I'm big on the love languages. So acts of service. I'm huge on this. So I'm with you on this. Absolutely. So you definitely want to show how you're pouring into it. So I agree with you.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, yes. I agree. And what's funny now that we're in this segue of the dating world? Do you find that people really appreciate that now? Or do you find that mostly like with dating now, it's just like, when our parents and our grandparents were dating in that particular era and time span, I feel like the dating realm now is just like, wow, it's so different when you look at the entire playbook of how it's done now.
I don't know. I don't really understand. I mean, I'm kind of like a little different. Because I just don't believe in it. I just don't think that it's authentic. I don't think that it's real. It's very the thing is, like, when you know somebody and you know their habits, right?
Right.
Like, I'm gonna just say with me, like, I like working.
Okay.
I enjoy mental stimulation. I like learning and all that stuff. Like, that's fun for me. And so I think because if a person knows that and they see me doing things that I don't ordinarily do, it means something different.
Right.
But you can't really know that, you know what I mean, when everything is so performative. Like, everybody's like playing a part, they're getting dressed up, they're doing these things that give like, oh yeah, I'm date worthy, but it's not really coming from, they're like doing this thing to like perform, to say, oh, I can do these things. It's not coming from a place of love and genuine care.
Gotcha.
So I don't know. It just seems like a performance.
That's a great way to put it, and that's a very great way to put it. Now I'm gonna give you an interesting hypothetical scenario because now that you mentioned the whole, you like to see a man, chopping some wood. When I picture this guy that you like, because you from Alaska, and I'll just say, let's just say, you were dating a guy that looked like Hugh Jackman, who's playing Wolverine, and he's out there in his A-neck, wife beater T-shirt, and he's out there chopping wood for Janelle. And then you said you also like a man that will come in and psychologically stimulate you, because I understand you're a sapiosexual. So been out there sweating, chopping wood and everything, and he comes in now. He's got to be loaded and come in here and talk to you across the dinner table and stimulate your mind. There's nothing about chopping wood that he can ever say to really.
Exactly.
So he's
I
got
mean,
to.
that's why, hey, I'm not married for a reason.
Okay. Okay.
I would say it's less about, so I feel like, as far as like people are concerned, I would say that the majority, well, I'm saying the majority, as if I've been with a whole bunch of people. I haven't, but the majority of the people, like, I meet them like, doing things that I already enjoy, like in my normal environment. Like, I never meet people outside of my, like, I'm calling it where I live. Where I live is I like live for work. You know what I mean? I never, you know what I mean? It's not some random person.
Gotcha.
So from there, I already have like, I have like 70% of the things that I enjoy, that I like. What sort of like sets it over the edge is like, but I like people that are like real and practical. And, like, I like a guy that, I don't want somebody that's so, I'm calling it fragile, or, you know what I mean? Like they can't stand the sight of dirt. Like, I don't like that. Like, that just, you know what I
Okay.
mean? That just like completely throws it off. I'm not saying that he has to be like a lumberjack. I'm just saying like, I'm just saying that, like, if they can, like, that is even better. You know what I mean? Just every now and again, or at least, they spent time outside, like with their dad. They did stuff in their shed. You know what I mean? Like, I'm used to that. And so it speaks to me in a very different way. Like, I don't want somebody that's like turning their nose up because, we went on a hike, or they don't know that you shouldn't wear suede loafers on a hike. Like, that's just not, I don't know, that bothers me. So that's like an addition, not.
So for to summarize this, you don't want him to be an absolute grease monkey, but he don't mind, going out, getting a little dirt on his pants.
Like, I tried to fix this. I'm gonna be like, yeah, I love it.
Okay, all right. Go out there and get dirty, is what she's saying. But still come in the house ready to stimulate their minds.
You're hilarious. You're hilarious.
It's gotta be balanced. That's all it is. So
Yeah, I don't want it so like you can't go anywhere because everything isn't like perfect. I just no, that's too much. Like not for a man. Come on. How am I gonna be protected if you're like
okay, that's hilarious. Okay, I get I totally get it. Now, here's the thing: is I totally understand. Now, watching my granddad come in the house when I was growing up, when he was finished outside, my granddad came in and literally it was absolute quiet in the kitchen. Because granddad, he would make his brown beans and literally he would, and my granddad was closest thing to really almost being vegan like me.
that's cute. Oh.
And he would sit there at his little table and have his brown beans, and he would just sit there in peace. But I get what you're saying. He didn't mind getting dirty. He could easily fix anything in the house, like literally fix anything in the house. One of those kind of men, like you know what? He could be an electrician, a plumber, a carpenter, all in the same day if need be.
Right. Or just like resourceful. You don't always he doesn't have to do everything, but I don't want him to be afraid to try. You know what I mean? Or
Absolutely.
it's just I think it just speaks to like your ability to like
Right.
solve and just do things. Like I don't, I just
I get it. And that's really growing up. That's what the Boy Scouts was kind of all about, right? They were like, teach you all these different fundamental things of how to do certain things.
Did you ever watch MacGyver?
That was a great show.
It was.
I love my guy.
My sister, that was her favorite, Richard Dean Anderson.
Literally, oh my God, knowing that you still know the theme song of that.
Of course.
Oh, that is a classic. Okay, that's a great show to really because literally that's how most women really kind of like looked at a manly man. Like if you are a man that really just are not resourceful, literally it was I could see how that could be a turn on for a woman. I definitely could see that. Me being on you and I both being homeowners, like literally, you got to go around the house and just literally learn how to fix some stuff. Like literally, I had to replace the light switch in my master bedroom closet. I had to upgrade. Yeah,
The thing is, I never really understood blue collar work and like there's a whole industry until I became a homeowner because I found that I was calling lots of people to come. I can't fix that stuff on my own. I'm sorry, I'm not. But I called or an uncle or my uncle.
Wait a minute. Hold on. We got to get to this for a second. You mean to tell me there is a 800 number you can call?
No, I just said that. I'm just saying, like, I definitely called Andy.
Oh my God. I was going to accident. Okay, I'm glad you cleared that. That 800 number is going to be literally shut down tonight. So maybe that's a great message. 1-800. Oh my God.
And the Jamaican one is what it.
Oh my God. Okay. Yeah, you have to lose my train of thought on that. Okay. Well, I will say this. You made some very valid, good points. And
I see. I haven't been investigating you. I should like dig in. Like episode 2 needs to be about your hot pursuits and the kinds of. Clearly, it's not a practical woman.
woman, hold on. Oh my God.
I'm
Wait.
saying like what I said for a guy was like I like practical, I like intellect. That was not what you'd be saying about your picks.
Oh, you just open up a can of
I
worms.
know. Stop. We're not okay. We need to stop this episode. And these commercials are brought to you by 1-800 Rent a Man. We need to go to commercial break.
Rent a man? That's hilarious. Oh my God.
Uh,
You say a woman. What's a practical woman now? What do you think the definition of a practical woman is today?
I am a practical woman. That's who is. I'm
Okay.
practical. I'm
Okay.
practical.
what would qualify? What would qualify being a practical one in your
I mean, well, I just think that what defines a wife, like what a wife actually is, what is, and I am a person of faith, I am a Christian. Like, I just think that, like, the description that I have in my mind is very different than what I see most guys today. I'm not talking about like previous generations, but like today, they're not like looking for shared values and um their ability to like mother and conversation and do we are we actually going in the same direction, and is she there to help me in my mission? They're like, no matter how far off from their mission, they don't even care. They're looking at features, many of which have been plastered on, blown up, siliconed up.
okay?
And that's not, I don't think that's practical. I think that's very impractical.
Okay, gosh. Okay. I get it. Every man has his preference, and I get what you're saying. And not every man and every woman. I truly believe in this dating age now. And since we're in this, I've heard of so many people saying dating is so hard, and this is the dating cesspool and all that. So I get
The cesspool.
it. Let's just all right. Let's just take all the gloves off now that we went down this path.
Oh my gosh, the gloves. No, I don't.
Jeez. That's hilarious. I truly believe there's not one monolithic standard that applies for all women and for all men. So I think most men, everybody has their preference. Everybody, some people just they struggle to deviate from their preferences. I've learned in my own experience that my preference hasn't always been in my best interest. And it's been a growth factor for me. But you do hit some very valid points. Yes, are we evaluating this person? Because I truly look at dating like this: is I'm looking for a partner, a best friend, a lover, like literally, because we gotta only not only do we have to
Hold
love
on,
each
hold on, hold on. I'm hearing that song. A homie, lover, friend is what I'm looking for. A homie, lover, friend. A homie, a homie. Wait, wait, wait.
oh my god, you really just took it back to the in the day with that
I
song.
mean, you literally said the lyrics, but you just said it out of order. Just go ahead and say it in the right order. A homie, love, a friend. You have the bass. You have the bass. I need you to sing it to me. Come on, come on.
No, oh my god. Okay. I was alto in the choir today. I'm telling I can't pretend.
Hold on a second. You never bothered to tell me that you were in the choir. How did I not? How did you omit that story? That must have been your Samson phase that you left that out. You were in your Samson phase. You left that out of the story.
Oh my god, that's hilarious. Oh my god, that's classic. God, but Jesus mercy, you're hilarious. But like, okay, getting back to the topic here, I do think yes, we do gotta like and love each other. I think the hardest thing is I think commitment really scares this generation of people. Because when you start thinking about being committed to something for the rest of your life, I think that really scares a lot of people. I think people have because I think we are in a society now where I feel like that the attention span for making things work is growing shorter and shorter. So with that, I think marriage and evaluating partners on those bases, I think a lot of women still want that. But when I talk to men, and I talk to a lot of men about marriage, and a lot of men want it, but they're afraid of divorce. And we know the ramifications of what divorce can do. And I get it. And, it's definitely made it harder to get across that barrier. And I truly do.
I think what you're saying is, I mean, honestly, at the beginning, that's the whole, I think that's the crux of the matter. Before, I feel like people usually married somebody that was I don't know, within what, like 50 miles or whatever of where they grew up. And so there's some familiarity and knowledge and friendship at the basis of their relationship. I think the reason why there's fear, see, when you marry your best friend, what do you have to be afraid of? They're not going anywhere.
Good point. And
They're your friend. And I think that's the problem. People don't know how to be friends anymore because it never they're not actually friends. I'm saying like I've lived on the East Coast for a long time now. I'm still my best friend from kindergarten. We are still like I hear from her every single week. And I've lived on the East Coast for God knows how long. And so I don't think people know how to actually be friends and how to engage with each other in normal, healthy ways anymore. They don't value people like they used to, and they don't know how to relate to others. And so, for those reasons, like, how can what is the expectation for marriage?
point. Okay. You're making a very valid,
Mm-hmm.
and you're right. And here's the thing: is to become best friends.
Mm-hmm.
Time that requires you to have
Yep.
to go through some things, and going through things takes time.
Give me some examples of going through some things. No, what you mean by some things?
All right, okay. We're going to use a biblical reference. We're going to say going some trials and some tribulation.
Okay. Trials and tribulation.
It's not like-
I don't love it.
this one is going to be interesting today. I really do. Okay, all right.
Okay, you have to edit some of this out because this is not radio ready.
I love it. I love the raw and unfiltered because
This is wrong. This
this is
is definitely raw.
really, but that's great though. I like it because it's I really do when I look at this and I've thought about this. When I think about my best friend, and his name is David. When we first met in undergrad. And I think about all that we've been through, supporting each other through, relationships. We've worked together at IBM together. We did so many things, loss of employment, so many different issues over the course of our lives. But those incidences and those things bonded us more because, we were there for each other. And I feel like in when you're looking for your partner, I think there has to be a proving ground. It's kind of like when you're going to, it's one thing to go through boot camp together when you're in the military, but then there's another thing when you're going to get SEAL training or you're going to be a Green Beret or something. Because then, this is a more, you're volunteering to more join that type of rigorous training. And like when you making that choice together to want to be to date and want to be best friends. Like you're choosing, like, I'm going to go through certain things with you. And it that's supposed to be the glue to help, bond each other because as we all know, you don't really know who your true friends are until you go through a storm or you need to ask somebody to help you move.
Oh, that's funny.
Ask them to help you. That when they say
Funny.
yes,
Yeah.
that's a good friend.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I love that you said that. And I think when you said that, because I come from the R&D, military R&D world, I always think of the Aberdeen Proving Grounds, right? You've done some testing, intentional testing up until that point. But the
Right.
proving grounds is when you're actually in a real life scenario, right? It's stress testing, like a certain number of hours. Like, can it withstand this continuously?
Right.
I think that is the point. I think what you're saying is it's one thing to be somewhere and to show up for people when it's not required, right? It's not friendship is just that. You don't have to, but when people do it, they're choosing to. And I just think that a lot of people don't. I'm starting to learn that people have very different things modeled to them as children. Whether it's you're only worthy in so much as that you're able to perform, And once you're not able to perform, then it's peace out, right? And that's not the model that I was raised with. And therefore, it doesn't work. And the only way you can know what is, I guess, someone's orientation or what they're about is when they're tested. That is where you find out what's really there. So, I mean, there's a lot there, but I just think that people have very different ideas of what relationship should look like. I think that a lot of people have not had that actually modeled to them. And so their idea is the cliff notes as presented to them on television.
Right.
And they think that, the cliff notes of the highlight reel is the real thing when it actually is exactly the opposite. So I just, and so for that reason, I can see why men are scared. I can see why people are scared because at the end of the day, everyone knows that your life isn't a highlight reel and who's going to stay around for the real deal.
Correct.
That's the question.
Exactly. 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 Well, Miss Janelle, I mean, I'm going to wrap up the show for today, but this was great. I am glad to, introduce you to my audience here. And literally, it is always a blast. There's always something funny that we can share. And
I'm
clearly, there's
glad
a
you
lot
like to
of
use
funny today.
it. All
Well,
right. Well, thank you for having me, sir.
yes, absolutely. Well, you enjoy the rest of your weekend. And
Thank you. You
all
too.
right.
All
Okay.
right. Okay. Bye.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was our show today. Like I was telling you, yeah, that's Dr. Janelle Billingslea. I've known her for years now. Very smart author. Definitely go out and get her book. If you haven't, yeah, the Federal Contracting Playbook, very good here. Also, as well, you want to learn more about me, you can read my book, Dream, Walk, Live. I would definitely love to, get a lot more of your feedback. I'm going to have some more guests come on. You're going to actually meet the other host, my best friend from a long time as we're doing this podcast. Still trying to learn what I want to call this podcast. We're still working through that, but just kind of want to get a lot of the feedback from you guys for what you think so far. And I'm hoping everybody's having a wonderful weekend. And yes, and I'll talk to you all soon.